Sarah Martinez had always been precise with numbers, not bullets. As a data analyst for a defense contractor, she spent her days adjusting statistical targets and probability models for military equipment assessments. Her world revolved around spreadsheets, algorithms, and the sterile environment of her cubicle overlooking the Quantico training facilities. The irony wasn't lost on her that while she calculated the effectiveness of weapons systems, she had never actually held a real firearm. Growing up in suburban Virginia with parents who were both college professors, guns were as foreign to her household as exotic cuisine. Her closest encounter with anything military-related was watching her neighbor's son practice ROTC drills in his backyard. Everything changed on a humid Tuesday morning in July, when her supervisor, Janet Morrison, called an emergency meeting. The Department of Defense had requested an urgent field assessment of their latest sniper rifle prototypes. The usual field team was deployed overseas, leaving Sarah's analytical unit short-handed for the live-fire testing phase. "I need someone who understands the mathematical models behind ballistic trajectories," Janet explained, her fingers drumming nervously on the conference table. "The contractor is breathing down our necks for accuracy reports, and we can't afford to delay this project any further." Sarah felt her stomach tighten as she realized where this conversation was heading. "You want me to observe live weapons testing?" "More than observe," Janet replied, sliding a thick folder across the table. "You'll need to verify that the real-world performance matches your computational models." The testing begins tomorrow at the Advanced Marksmanship Range. That evening, Sarah researched everything she could about firearms, ballistics, and shooting techniques. She watched online tutorials, read military manuals, and studied trajectory charts until her eyes burned. Despite her analytical mind's ability to grasp the theoretical concepts, she felt completely unprepared for the practical reality of being around live ammunition. The Advanced Marksmanship Range sprawled across several acres of carefully maintained terrain, featuring targets at distances ranging from 100 to 1,200 yards. When Sarah arrived the next morning, carrying her laptop and a briefcase full of data sheets, she was struck by the controlled chaos of the testing environment. Military personnel moved with practiced efficiency, setting up equipment and preparing weapons systems. The air crackled with radio chatter, the distant pop of gunfire from adjacent ranges, and the mechanical whir of motorized target systems. Sarah had never experienced anything like the raw energy of an active military training facility. Her assigned liaison was Master Chief Petty Officer David Bull Richardson, a weathered Navy SEAL with 23 years of service and arms like tree trunks. His handshake could have crushed walnuts, but his eyes held a patience that immediately put Sarah at ease. "First time on a live range?" Bull asked, noting her obvious nervousness as she fumbled with her equipment. "First time anywhere near actual weapons," Sarah admitted, trying to project more confidence than she felt. "I usually work with computer simulations and statistical models," Bull chuckled, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. "Well, today you're going to see how those pretty numbers translate to real steel and lead. The prototype we're testing is designed to be the most accurate, long-range rifle system our military has ever fielded." The weapon in question was a marvel of engineering precision. The XM-2024 sniper system incorporated advanced barrel harmonics, adaptive optics, and a revolutionary recoil management system that Sarah had helped design through her mathematical modeling. Seeing her calculations transformed into tangible metal and composite materials gave her an unexpected thrill of professional pride. "Your models predicted this rifle should maintain sub-MOA accuracy out to 800 yards, Bull explained as he demonstrated the weapon's features. "That means every shot should land within a 1-inch circle at 100 yards, scaling proportionally with distance." Sarah nodded, recognizing the mathematical relationship immediately. The ballistic coefficient calculations suggested optimal performance with match-grade ammunition in controlled environmental conditions. "Right. Today we test whether your math holds up in the real world." The first phase of testing involved military marksmen firing predetermined shot groups, while Sarah recorded environmental variables and compared actual impact points to her predictive models. The data was encouraging. Her calculations were proving remarkably accurate, with actual performance exceeding projected specifications. As the morning progressed, Sarah found herself becoming increasingly fascinated by the precision required for long-range marksmanship. It wasn't just about pulling a trigger. It was a complex orchestration of wind reading, range estimation, atmospheric pressure calculations, and minute mechanical adjustments that reminded her of the intricate mathematical problems she solved daily. During a break in testing, Bull noticed Sarah studying the ballistic tables with intense concentration. "You're really getting into this, aren't you?" "It's remarkable how many variables affect accuracy," Sarah replied, not looking up from her data sheets. "Temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, wind speed and direction, Coriolis effect, bullet weight, powder temperature. It's like a massive multivariable equation solving itself in real time." "That's exactly what it is," Bull agreed. "Most shooters develop an intuitive feel for these factors, but having someone who actually understands the underlying mathematics is refreshing." The afternoon session focused on extreme range testing, pushing the rifle to its maximum effective distance. Sarah watched through high-powered optics as experienced snipers engaged targets at 1,000 yards and beyond. Each shot represented dozens of calculations and adjustments, a ballet of precision that married human skill with technological capability. As the day progressed, Sarah began to see patterns in the data that hadn't been apparent in her laboratory models. The human element, breathing patterns, trigger control, body position, introduced variables that pure mathematics couldn't capture. She furiously scribbled notes, already formulating improvements to her analytical frameworks. "Your computer models are impressive," Bull observed during the final testing phase. "But they don't account for the biggest variable in any shooting system, which is the shooter. No matter how perfect the rifle, ammunition, and conditions, everything ultimately depends on the person behind the trigger." Sarah realized he was right. All her sophisticated calculations were meaningless without considering human factors, reaction times, muscle memory, psychological pressure, and the indefinable quality that separated competent marksmen from true masters of their craft. The testing concluded with mixed results. While the rifle performed admirably in controlled conditions, several shots had landed outside predicted parameters when environmental factors shifted unexpectedly. Sarah's models needed refinement to account for rapid atmospheric changes and human adaptation responses. "Don't look so disappointed," Bull said, noticing Sarah's frown as she reviewed the discrepancies. "Your baseline calculations were spot on. The variations we saw today will help you build better models." "I'm not disappointed," Sarah replied slowly. "I'm intrigued. There's so much complexity here that I never considered from behind a computer screen. If you're serious about improving those models, you should learn to shoot yourself. Understanding the practical side will make your mathematical side stronger." The suggestion caught Sarah off guard. She had come to observe and record, not participate. The idea of actually firing a weapon seemed both terrifying and oddly appealing. "I wouldn't know where to start," she admitted. Bull smiled, a plan already forming in his experienced mind. "Leave that to me. If you're willing to come back tomorrow, I'll show you what those numbers really mean when they meet reality." As Sarah packed her equipment and prepared to leave, she found herself looking forward to returning with an anticipation she hadn't expected. The sterile world of mathematical modeling suddenly felt incomplete compared to the dynamic environment of practical application. She had always been comfortable adjusting targets on computer screens, but tomorrow would mark the beginning of her journey toward understanding what it truly meant to hit them. Sarah arrived at the range the next morning, 30 minutes early, carrying a notebook filled with questions she had formulated the previous evening. The anticipation of actually handling a firearm had kept her awake well past midnight, alternating between excitement and nervousness as she imagined the experience ahead. Bull was already there, methodically cleaning and inspecting a collection of rifles laid out on a portable table. The morning sun cast long shadows across the range, and the air held that crisp quality that experienced marksmen knew provided ideal shooting conditions. "Ready for your first real shooting lesson?" Bull asked without looking up from his weapon maintenance routine. "As ready as someone can be who's never held a gun," Sarah replied, setting down her equipment bag. "I've been reading about shooting fundamentals all night." Bull chuckled and held up a pristine rifle with a wooden stock and simple iron sights. "Forget everything you read. We're starting with the basics. This is a .22 caliber training rifle. Minimal recoil, quiet report, perfect for learning proper mechanics." Sarah had expected to begin with something more advanced, perhaps even the prototype system from yesterday's testing. The simple training rifle seemed almost anticlimactic compared to the sophisticated equipment she had been analyzing. "I thought we'd use the XM-2024, she said, unable to hide her disappointment. "Would you try to learn calculus by starting with quantum mechanics?" Bull asked, carefully checking the rifle's action. "Marksmanship is built on fundamentals. Master these basics, and advanced systems become tools. Skip them, and even the best rifle won't help you hit anything." The wisdom in his approach became apparent as soon as Sarah attempted to hold the rifle properly. What seemed straightforward in theoretical terms proved awkward and unnatural in practice. Her grip felt tentative, her stance unstable, and the simple act of aligning the sights required more concentration than she had anticipated. Bull patiently corrected her posture, adjusting her shoulder position, explaining the importance of natural point of aim, and demonstrating how to achieve proper sight alignment. Each correction felt significant, transforming her understanding of marksmanship from abstract concept to physical reality. "Shooting isn't about fighting the rifle," Bull explained as he helped her establish a stable shooting position. "It's about creating a platform where the rifle wants to point naturally at the target. Force never produces accuracy." Sarah's first shot went wide, missing the paper target entirely despite careful aim at a distance of only 50 yards. The experience was both humbling and educational. Her mathematical brain had calculated the trajectory perfectly, but her body hadn't executed the plan with sufficient precision. "Don't get frustrated," Bull counseled, observing her disappointed expression. "Your sight picture looked good. The miss was probably trigger control. Let's work on that." Trigger control, Sarah discovered, was far more complex than simply pulling a lever. Bull taught her about pre-travel, breakpoint, follow-through, and reset. A sequence of micro-movements that required coordination between mind and muscle that could only be developed through repetition. "Think of it like playing a musical instrument," Bull suggested as Sarah practiced dry-firing the unloaded rifle. "Every movement must be deliberate, smooth, and consistent. Jerky motions destroy accuracy, just like they destroy melody." After an hour of position work and dry practice, Sarah fired her second shot. This one struck the target, albeit in the outer ring, far from the bullseye. The simple achievement of hitting paper produced a surprising rush of satisfaction that she hadn't anticipated. "Better," Bull acknowledged. "Now let's work on consistency." The next 2 hours passed in intensive practice, with Bull providing constant coaching and correction. Sarah began to understand how her analytical mind could be both asset and liability in marksmanship. While her ability to process complex ballistic calculations provided advantages, her tendency to overthink each shot sometimes created tension that degraded performance. "You're calculating when you should be feeling," Bull observed after watching her struggle through a difficult string of shots. "Trust your natural point of aim. Let the rifle settle into the target rather than forcing it there." Gradually, Sarah's shots began clustering closer to the center of the target. Each improvement felt earned through genuine effort and growing understanding. The mathematical precision she had always valued was still important, but it had to be balanced with physical skill and mental discipline. As her confidence increased, Bull introduced more challenging scenarios. They moved to longer distances, practiced shooting from different positions, and worked on rapid target engagement. Sarah discovered that marksmanship was far more dynamic and demanding than she had imagined from her computer modeling work. "Your groups are tightening up nicely," Bull noted, examining her latest target through binoculars. "You've got natural steadiness and good analytical instincts. With proper training, you could develop into a serious marksman." The comment pleased Sarah more than she had expected. Recognition from someone of Bull's experience and expertise felt like validation of her efforts to bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical skill. During a break in training, other personnel began arriving for afternoon testing sessions. Sarah recognized several of the military marksmen from the previous day's prototype evaluation. Their professional efficiency and casual competence with firearms emphasized how much she still had to learn. "Don't compare yourself to them," Bull advised, noticing her watching the experienced shooters. "They've been training for years. You're just getting started." Among the arriving personnel was Staff Sergeant Maria Vasquez, a Marine Corps sniper instructor whose reputation for extreme range accuracy was legendary throughout the military marksmanship community. Sarah had read about Vasquez's record-setting shots in the technical literature but seeing her in person was intimidating. "Bull, I heard you've been corrupting a civilian," Vasquez said with a grin, approaching their shooting position. "Sarah's a data analyst working on the new rifle project," Bull explained. She wanted to understand the practical side of her mathematical models. Vasquez examined Sarah's target with professional interest. "Not bad for a beginner. Your groups show potential, but you're fighting your natural rhythm. Marksmanship is about harmony between shooter, rifle, and environment." Sarah found herself drawn into a technical discussion with Vasquez about wind reading, atmospheric effects, and the psychological aspects of precision shooting. The conversation revealed depths of knowledge that extended far beyond her mathematical understanding. "Computer models can predict general performance," Vasquez explained, "but they can't capture the micro-adjustments a skilled marksman makes instinctively. That's where human expertise exceeds artificial calculation." The observation resonated with Sarah's growing appreciation for the human element in marksmanship systems. Her models were sophisticated tools, but they were incomplete without considering the adaptive capabilities of trained shooters. As the afternoon progressed, Bull introduced Sarah to more advanced techniques. They worked on breathing control, trigger timing, and mental preparation. Each lesson revealed new layers of complexity that her analytical mind found simultaneously challenging and fascinating. "Shooting is meditation in action," Bull explained as Sarah practiced breathing exercises between shots. "Your mind must be calm, focused, and present. Distractions destroy precision faster than mechanical problems." Sarah's final target of the day showed remarkable improvement from her morning efforts. While still far from expert level, her shots were grouping consistently and centering closer to the bullseye. The progress felt tangible and encouraging. "Tomorrow we'll try you on something with a little more power," Bull announced as they cleaned and secured the training rifles. "Maybe a .308 with a proper scope. Your fundamentals are solid enough to handle increased complexity." The prospect of advancing to more sophisticated equipment excited Sarah. She was beginning to understand why marksmanship commanded such respect among military personnel. It demanded a unique combination of technical knowledge, physical skill, and mental discipline that few other activities required. As she drove home that evening, Sarah reflected on how much her perspective had changed in just 2 days. The sterile world of mathematical modeling now seemed incomplete compared to the dynamic reality of practical application. Her respect for military marksmen had increased exponentially as she gained first-hand appreciation for their skills. More importantly, she was discovering capabilities within herself that she hadn't known existed. The precise, methodical thinking that served her well in data analysis was proving equally valuable in marksmanship, but it had to be combined with physical skills and intuitive understanding that could only be developed through practice. Her notebook was filled with observations, questions, and insights that would improve her analytical models. But beyond the professional benefits, Sarah was experiencing a personal transformation that surprised her with its intensity. She was becoming a shooter, and the identity felt both foreign and natural simultaneously. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities to test her developing skills against more demanding scenarios. The foundation was laid, and Sarah was eager to continue building upon it. 3 weeks of intensive training had transformed Sarah from a complete novice into a competent recreational shooter. Her daily sessions with Bull had progressed from basic .22 caliber training to centerfire rifles with sophisticated optics. The mathematical principles that governed her computer models were now reinforced by muscle memory and practical experience. The morning that would change everything began with an unexpected phone call from Janet Morrison. The Department of Defense had scheduled an emergency demonstration for a congressional oversight committee, and the usual test team was delayed by weather at another facility. "I need you and Bull to conduct the live-fire demonstration," Janet explained, her voice tight with stress. "The prototype's funding depends on this presentation. We can't postpone." Sarah felt her stomach drop. While her shooting had improved dramatically, she was still far from the expert level required for high-stakes demonstrations. "Janet, I'm not qualified for that kind of pressure. You need experienced military marksmen." "Bull will handle the primary shooting," Janet assured her. "Your job is to verify that performance matches specifications and explain the technical aspects to the committee. But I need you there as backup, just in case." The congressional delegation arrived at the range in a convoy of black SUVs, bringing an entourage of staff members, security personnel, and media representatives. The casual atmosphere Sarah had grown accustomed to was replaced by formal protocols and careful staging. Congressman Richard Blackwood, chairman of the Armed Services Committee, was an imposing figure with silver hair and the bearing of a career military officer. His reputation for detailed technical questions and skepticism about defense spending was legendary among contractors. "Martinez," Blackwood said after introductions, "I understand you developed the mathematical models for this weapons system. I'm particularly interested in your claims about accuracy improvements over existing platforms." Sarah outlined the theoretical advantages of the XM.2024, explaining how improved barrel harmonics, advanced optics, and recoil management systems should provide superior accuracy. Her presentation was confident and detailed, supported by comprehensive data analysis. "Theory is impressive," Blackwood replied, "but I'm more interested in practical results. Show me what this rifle can actually do." Bull stepped forward to begin the demonstration, methodically explaining each component of the rifle system while setting up for the first series of shots. His professionalism and expertise were evident as he engaged targets at progressively longer ranges. The first phase went flawlessly. Bull's shots consistently struck within the predicted accuracy parameters, validating Sarah's mathematical models with impressive precision. The congressional observers seemed suitably impressed by the rifle's performance. "Excellent shooting," Blackwood acknowledged, lowering his binoculars after Bull completed a challenging 800-yard shot sequence. "But I'd like to see how the system performs under more difficult conditions. Can you engage the extreme range targets?" Bull prepared for shots at 1,000 yards, the maximum effective range they had established during testing. The atmospheric conditions were becoming challenging, with shifting wind patterns that would test both shooter and equipment to their limits. The first two shots landed within acceptable parameters, demonstrating the rifle's capability at extended range. As Bull prepared for the third shot, Sarah noticed something wrong in his shooting position. Years of combat deployments and intensive training had taken their toll on his body, and the strain of maintaining perfect form was becoming visible. "Chief, you okay?" Sarah asked quietly, noting the slight tremor in Bull's support hand. "Old injury acting up," Bull admitted through gritted teeth. "Took some shrapnel in Afghanistan a few years back. Sometimes the nerve damage flares up during precision work." The timing couldn't have been worse. The Congressional Committee was expecting a flawless demonstration, and Bull's developing muscle tremors were threatening to undermine the entire presentation. Sarah could see the frustration and concern in his eyes as he struggled to maintain stability. "Can you continue?" Sarah asked, though the answer was becoming obvious. Bull's condition was deteriorating rapidly, and pushing through could result in embarrassing misses that would damage the program's credibility. "I don't think so," Bull admitted reluctantly. "The tremors are getting worse. I might be able to get through one more shot, but it won't be pretty." Sarah looked at the expectant faces of the congressional delegation, the cameras recording everything for posterity, and the expensive rifle system that represented years of development work. The mathematical models she had created were solid, but they needed practical demonstration to secure funding for production. "Let me try," Sarah heard herself saying, surprised by her own words. Bull stared at her in amazement. "Sarah, this isn't a training exercise. These are 1,000-yard shots with a congressional committee watching. The pressure alone could rattle experienced marksmen. My models predict the rifle should perform at this range," Sarah replied, trying to project more confidence than she felt. "I understand the ballistic calculations better than anyone here. If the mathematics are correct, the rifle should do most of the work." Congressman Blackwood had noticed the delay and approached their position. "Is there a problem with the demonstration?" Bull quickly explained the situation while Sarah mentally reviewed everything she had learned about long-range marksmanship. The mathematical principles were clear in her mind: wind speed and direction, temperature effects on ballistics, atmospheric pressure variations, and the complex geometry of extreme-range shooting. "Ms. Martinez," Blackwood said after hearing Bull's explanation, "you're proposing to attempt precision shots at 1,000 yards with congressional oversight watching? That seems ambitious for someone with limited experience." "The rifle system is designed to enable accurate shooting at extreme ranges," Sarah replied, her analytical mind taking control. If my calculations are correct, and if I can execute proper shooting mechanics, the technology should compensate for my inexperience. Bull looked at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. Sarah, you've got the fundamentals down. But this is different. There's no do-over if you miss. I understand the risks, Sarah said, already moving toward the shooting position. But this is why we develop these systems, to extend effective range for properly trained personnel. Let's see if the mathematics work in practice. The rifle felt familiar in her hands after weeks of training, but the weight of expectation was unlike anything she had experienced. Sarah forced herself to focus on the fundamentals Bull had drilled into her: proper position, natural point of aim, breathing control, and smooth trigger manipulation. Through the scope, the target at 1,000 yards looked impossibly small and distant. Sarah began her pre-shot routine, methodically working through the mental checklist that had become second nature during training. Wind speed, atmospheric pressure, range estimation, sight adjustment, each variable demanded careful consideration. Take your time, Bull advised quietly, kneeling beside her to provide coaching. Trust your training and the equipment. The rifle wants to hit the target, just give it the chance. Sarah's first attempt at the extreme range shot was a moment of pure concentration. The world narrowed to include only the target, the crosshairs, and her breathing rhythm. She felt the rifle settle naturally into position, the optics providing crystal-clear resolution of the distant target. The shot broke cleanly, surprising Sarah with its smoothness. Through the scope, she watched the bullet's impact, a clean hit in the outer ring of the target, well within acceptable accuracy parameters for the range and conditions. A murmur of approval rose from the congressional observers, but Sarah barely heard it. Her analytical mind was already processing the data from the shot, calculating adjustments for the next attempt based on observed wind effects and bullet impact. Outstanding shot, Bull said with genuine pride. Your calculation was perfect, and your execution was textbook. Ready for another? Sarah's second shot struck even closer to the target center, demonstrating both the rifle's consistency and her growing confidence. The mathematical models she had developed were proving their worth under the most demanding practical conditions. Congressman Blackwood approached the shooting position as Sarah prepared for a third shot. Ms. Martinez, I'm impressed by your performance. This demonstrates that your analytical approach to weapons development has practical merit. The rifle system makes extreme range accuracy achievable for properly trained personnel, Sarah replied, her confidence growing with each successful shot. The technology amplifies human capability rather than replacing it. Her final shot of the demonstration landed within inches of the bullseye at 1,000 yards, a feat that would have been impressive for an experienced marksman and was extraordinary for someone with just 3 weeks of training. The mathematical precision of her calculations, combined with the rifle's advanced capabilities, had produced results that exceeded everyone's expectations. The Congressional Committee was visibly impressed, asking detailed technical questions about the system's capabilities and potential applications. Sarah found herself confidently explaining the relationship between theoretical performance and practical results, using her successful shots as validation of the underlying mathematics. This has been a remarkable demonstration, Blackwood concluded. Martinez, you've shown that advanced technology, proper training, and analytical thinking can achieve extraordinary results. This program will receive our full support. As the delegation departed and the range returned to normal operations, Sarah reflected on the morning's events. She had successfully bridged the gap between mathematical modeling and practical application, proving that her analytical approach to weapons development had real-world merit. Bull shook his head in amazement as they secured the rifles and equipment. Sarah, what you just did was incredible. Most people train for years to achieve that level of performance under pressure. The mathematics worked exactly as predicted, Sarah replied, though she knew there had been far more involved than simple calculations. The rifle performed flawlessly, and your training gave me the fundamentals I needed. The successful demonstration marked a turning point in Sarah's career and personal development. She had proven herself capable of extraordinary performance when circumstances demanded it, combining analytical thinking with practical skill in ways that exceeded her own expectations. The success of the congressional demonstration catapulted Sarah into an unexpected spotlight within the defense community. Word spread quickly about the data analyst who had made precision shots at extreme range with minimal training, validating her mathematical models through extraordinary practical performance. 3 months later, Sarah received an invitation that would test her abilities beyond anything she had previously imagined. The International Precision Rifle Championship was hosting a special exhibition match featuring prototype weapons systems, and the XM-2024 rifle had been selected for demonstration. "This is different from congressional oversight," Bull warned as they prepared for the competition. "You'll be shooting alongside the world's best precision marksmen. These guys have been training for decades." Sarah understood the magnitude of the challenge. The competition would include Olympic medalists, military snipers, and professional marksmen whose skills had been honed through years of intensive training and competition. Her 3 months of experience seemed inadequate preparation for such elite company. "My mathematical models suggest the rifle should perform well under competition conditions," Sarah replied, though she felt less confident than her words implied. "The technology is designed to enable extraordinary accuracy when properly employed." The championship venue was intimidating in its scope and sophistication. Shooting positions were meticulously prepared. Targets were positioned at distances extending beyond 1,200 yards, and the assembled competitors represented the absolute pinnacle of marksmanship expertise. Sarah's presence attracted considerable attention from other competitors and spectators. The story of her rapid development and congressional demonstration had become legendary within shooting circles, though many remain skeptical about her ability to perform against world-class competition. "You're the mathematician everyone's talking about," said Viktor Petrov, a Russian competitor whose Olympic medals and world records had made him a legend in precision shooting. "Interesting to see if calculations can compete with experience." The exhibition format included multiple challenging scenarios designed to test both shooter skill and equipment capabilities. Competitors would engage targets at various ranges and angles, simulate field conditions with time pressures, and demonstrate accuracy under deliberately stressful circumstances. Sarah's first challenge was a cold bore shot at 800 yards, hitting a precise target with the first shot from an unwarmed rifle barrel. This scenario tested both equipment consistency and shooter confidence, eliminating the opportunity to adjust based on observed impact. Standing at the firing line, Sarah felt the weight of expectation from the assembled crowd. Cameras were recording every moment, and commentary was being broadcast to precision shooting enthusiasts worldwide. The pressure was unlike anything she had experienced during training or even the congressional demonstration. Bull knelt beside her, providing coaching and encouragement. "Remember your fundamentals. Trust your calculations, and let the rifle do its job. The mathematics haven't changed just because there's a bigger audience." Sarah methodically worked through her pre-shot routine, calculating environmental effects and adjusting her aim point accordingly. The mathematical principles that governed ballistic trajectories were immutable regardless of the competitive pressure surrounding her. Her cold-bore shot struck the target precisely as calculated, earning appreciative murmurs from competitors and spectators. The mathematical approach was proving its worth against the intuitive methods employed by more experienced shooters. "Impressive shot," acknowledged Maria Santos, a Brazilian competitor whose precision rifle expertise had earned international recognition. "Your analytical approach produces very consistent results." The competition progressed through increasingly challenging scenarios. Sarah found herself performing at levels that surprised even Bull, who had witnessed her rapid development from the beginning. Her combination of mathematical precision and disciplined fundamentals was proving remarkably effective. The decisive challenge came during the final elimination round. Competitors were required to engage a series of targets at unknown distances, estimating range and environmental effects, without technological assistance beyond basic optics. This scenario favored experienced marksmen, whose intuitive understanding of ballistics had been developed through years of practical application. Sarah studied the targets through her scope, applying mathematical principles to estimate ranges and calculate holdover requirements. While other competitors relied on hard-earned experience and instinctive adjustments, she systematically worked through ballistic equations in her mind. The first target appeared to be approximately 750 yards distant, with moderate crosswind effects requiring windage adjustment. Sarah calculated the necessary corrections and confidently engaged the target, achieving a precise hit that demonstrated the effectiveness of her analytical approach. Success on the remaining targets required increasingly complex calculations as ranges extended and environmental effects became more challenging. Sarah found herself drawing upon every lesson Bull had taught her, combining mathematical precision with the shooting fundamentals that had become second nature through intensive practice. As the competition reached its climax, only 3 shooters remained in contention: Victor Petrov, Maria Santos, and Sarah Martinez. The final challenge would test their abilities at the absolute limits of the rifle's effective range. The target was positioned at 1,200 yards, beyond the distance of Sarah's previous successful shots and approaching the theoretical maximum range of the XM-2024 system. Environmental conditions were deliberately challenging, with variable wind patterns and shifting atmospheric pressure that would test even the most sophisticated calculations. This is where experience usually beats theory, Bull warned quietly as Sarah prepared for the final shot. At this range, tiny errors get magnified into big misses. Trust your training and make the best shot you can. Sarah felt surprisingly calm as she settled into her shooting position. The mathematical principles were clear in her mind. She understood the ballistic trajectory, wind effects, and atmospheric influences that would affect bullet flight. The rifle was capable of accuracy at this range if she could execute proper shooting mechanics. Through the scope, the target looked impossibly distant and small. Sarah began her pre-shot routine, methodically calculating all relevant variables and arriving at a precise aim point that accounted for every measurable environmental factor. The shot sequence felt perfect: smooth trigger control, proper follow-through, and natural rifle recoil that indicated optimal bullet release. Sarah maintained her shooting position, watching through the scope as spotters confirmed the impact location. "Dead center hit," announced the range officer, his voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet firing line. "Martinez has achieved a perfect bullseye at 1,200 yards. The reaction from competitors and spectators was immediate and overwhelming. Applause erupted from the gallery while fellow competitors offered congratulations and expressions of amazement at her achievement. Sarah had not only matched the performance of world-class marksmen, but had exceeded it under the most demanding circumstances. Victor Petrov approached her position with genuine respect and admiration. "Your mathematical approach has achieved something remarkable. You've shown that analytical thinking can produce extraordinary results when combined with proper training." The achievement represented more than just exceptional marksmanship. Sarah had successfully validated her belief that mathematical modeling could enhance human performance rather than replace it. The sophisticated calculations that governed her computer simulations had proven their worth in the most demanding practical application imaginable. Bull beamed with pride as media representatives requested interviews and photography. "Sarah, what you just accomplished will be remembered in marksmanship circles for years to come. You've changed people's thinking about the relationship between theory and practice." In the weeks following the championship, Sarah received offers from military units, competitive shooting teams, and weapons manufacturers who wanted to incorporate her analytical approach into their training programs. Her success had demonstrated that mathematical precision could be combined with human skill to achieve performance levels that exceeded traditional expectations. The girl who had started by adjusting computer targets had discovered capabilities within herself that transcended anything she had previously imagined. Through the patient guidance of a Navy SEAL and her own determination to bridge theory with practice, Sarah had achieved the impossible and redefined what was possible for others to achieve. Her journey from data analyst to precision marksman had revealed fundamental truths about human potential and the power of combining analytical thinking with practical skill. The mathematical models that had once existed only in computer simulations were now proven capable of producing extraordinary real-world results when applied with dedication, training, and courage. The rifle had made the shots possible, but it was Sarah's unique combination of mathematical understanding and learned marksmanship fundamentals that had made them inevitable. She had pulled off the impossible by understanding that precision is achieved through the marriage of science and skill, calculation and practice, theory and reality.